I had just finished my shift when I saw Derek's text. "Sis, can I crash with you for a couple weeks? Just 2 weeks, I swear." I stood there, thumb hovering over my phone. The words felt familiar, way too familiar, same as last time. And the time before that, still I typed back, "Okay, come on over." It was always me, always the one who couldn't say no to family. Derek showed up that night smelling like cigarette smoke and sweat, dragging an old duffel bag. He smiled like a teenager again. "Thanks, Lana, I just need a place for a little while, then I'll be out of your hair." I nodded, unlocked the door, and cleared out the spare bedroom right next to my son Nathan's room. Nathan's 14. Sweet kid, growing fast. He adored Derek, always had. Maybe because Derek joked with him, brought him snacks, played video games, things I never had time for as a night shift nurse. The first day, Derek cooked dinner. The second day, he helped fix a leaky faucet. By the third day, he'd rearranged the living room like it was his. I didn't say anything. I told myself, he's trying to help, maybe he's finally changing. On the fourth day, I came home to find a woman standing in my kitchen. "I'm Tessa," she said brightly, "Derek's ex. He said I could stay here for a bit." I didn't answer, I just heard dishes clinking behind her. Nathan shouted from the couch, "Uncle Derek said Tessa's staying with us. Isn't that cool, Mom?" I froze. 1 week later, Tessa's daughter moved in, Mia, about 5, curly hair, sharp little eyes. She clung to Tessa's leg like a barnacle. I started cooking for 6 people. I took out the trash, paid the bills, worked overnight, came home to find the kitchen wrecked, the TV blasting, and Mia's toys scattered across my living room. One night, Nathan looked up from his homework and said, "Mom, you should be nicer to Tessa. She's trying. Uncle Derek says maybe you're just lonely. That's why you're always upset." My chest went tight. Was I losing my son in my own house? 3 weeks in, I went to the bank to check on the deed. Not because I doubted anything, but something in my gut didn't feel right. I just wanted to make sure Nathan's future was protected. The woman behind the glass pulled up the records. Her brows furrowed. "You said your name's Lana, but the deed is under a Derek Grayson. It was updated 2 months ago." I blinked. "That can't be right. This is my house. I inherited it after our parents passed, over 10 years ago." She looked apologetic. "I'm just going by the system. If there's a mistake, you'll need to file a dispute with documentation." I walked out of the bank in a daze, hands shaking. July sun blazing down, still I felt ice cold. Derek had put the house under his name, behind my back. That night I came home. No one opened the door. They were all in the dining room, laughing. Tessa passed around a bowl of mashed potatoes like it was Sunday dinner. Nathan poured her a drink and called her Auntie Tessa. Derek didn't even look surprised when he saw me. "I figured you knew by now," he said. "Dad left a transfer form. You never cared about the paperwork anyway." I looked straight at him. "How do you get the house under your name?" He shrugged. "We're all family here. No one's kicking you out." That sentence hit harder than a punch. I was the one who paid every utility, who let him stay, who stepped aside again and again. And now I had no voice, no power, not even the dignity of being the one who decided who stayed and who left. I went to my room, locked the door, sat down on the floor and cried. Only the quiet hum of the AC kept me company. For the first time I realized I was in my own house, but I felt like the guest. The next morning I left before anyone woke up. I sat in my car for a long time before starting the engine. My hands were still trembling from the night before. I wasn't sure if it was rage or grief or just exhaustion. I drove around aimlessly, letting the silence soak in. No radio, no calls, just me. I ended up at the hospital early, still in my scrubs from the day before. "Rough night?" my coworker Gina asked, handing me a lukewarm coffee. I nodded. "You have no idea." Gina was the only person at work who knew bits and pieces of my life. We'd worked together for over 5 years. She was older, sharper, and didn't sugarcoat anything. I told her everything that happened over the past few weeks: Derek, Tessa, Mia, the house, Nathan. By the time I finished, her face was tight with fury. "Lana, that house is yours. You let him in out of kindness, and he's using it to replace you." I looked down at the coffee cup in my hand. I didn't want to turn my back on family. "Family?" she scoffed. "Real family doesn't take your roof and act like it's theirs." I didn't say anything, I just stared at the floor until my pager buzzed. That night I came home late. The house was quiet, but something was off. Nathan's bedroom door was slightly open. I peeked in. He was asleep, curled under his blanket, but Tessa's sweater was draped over the chair by his desk. Why was she even in his room? I stepped back quietly, trying to steady my breathing. Then I saw Derek standing in the hallway with his arms crossed. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. I wanted to scream, but instead I whispered, "Why is Tessa going through my son's room?" He raised an eyebrow. "She just wanted to check if he needed warmer sheets." I shook my head. No, that's not her place. "It's her home too now," he said, tone clipped. "You need to stop being so territorial. We're building something here." Something cracked inside me. "You're building something in my house behind my back." Derek took a step closer. "You're just scared because it's not all about you anymore." I stared at him in disbelief. "You think this is about attention?" He shrugged. "You're used to control, that's your problem." I wanted to hit something. I wanted to tear the walls down, but I didn't. I just nodded slowly and said, "You're right, I like control. And I'm taking it back." I walked past him, heart pounding, and shut the door to my room. I didn't sleep that night. I researched lawyers, looked up property records, pulled every box of paperwork I had from my parents. I hadn't thought about their will in years, but I found it, and there, at the bottom of the original deed, was the line I needed. Inherited by Lana Grayson, sole beneficiary. I smiled for the first time in weeks. He forged something. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to prove it. The next day, I met with a lawyer during my lunch break. She wore sharp glasses and didn't waste time. "You'll need a property claim, a fraud investigation, and you'll have to prepare for a fight." "I'm ready," I said, more certain than I'd felt in years. She leaned back. "And your brother? He has no idea who he's messing with." That night I didn't go straight home. I sat in the parking lot staring at the upstairs windows of the house. My house. Through the living room window I could see Tessa laughing. Mia was twirling in the center of the room like it was her stage. Derek sat comfortably on the couch. Nathan wasn't in sight. Maybe he was in his room. Maybe he was drifting further and further from me. I clenched the steering wheel. Then I made a decision. I opened my phone and typed one line in a message to Janine. "I'm going to get my life back." Then I stepped out of the car and walked toward the front door. This time I didn't knock. I pushed open the front door without a sound. The scent of microwaved popcorn hit me first. Then the sight of Tessa in my chair, legs tucked under her, holding the remote like she owned the place. Derek turned when he heard the door. "Oh hey," he said casually, as if I were just a neighbor dropping by. Tessa barely looked up. "We thought you were working late." "I changed shifts," I replied, walking in, calm and slow. Nathan came out of the hallway just then, earbuds in, hoodie half-zipped. He looked tired. His eyes met mine, then darted away. He used to run to the door when I got home. Now he just said, "Hey," and turned back to his phone. I looked at Mia, who had built a pillow fort in the middle of the living room. "Why's the coffee table in the hallway?" I asked. Tessa answered, still not making eye contact. "It was in the way." I nodded. "In the way of what, your campout?" She finally looked at me. "It's just temporary, while we're settling in." Settling in, that was the phrase that lit the fuse. I took a deep breath, then turned to Derek. "We need to talk now." He got up slowly with a smirk like he already knew what I was about to say, but he didn't, not even close. We stepped into the kitchen. I didn't sit. "You changed the name on the deed." He crossed his arms. "Technically, I submitted a transfer, and Dad signed those documents years ago." "No," I said sharply. "He signed something else. I found the original will." That wiped the smirk off his face. "Lana, you forged something," I said. "You stole from me, from Nathan." Derek's jaw tightened. "That house was always meant for both of us. You think you get everything because you stayed behind. Because you played the role of the good child." My hands balled into fists. "I paid the bills, I gave up college, I took care of Mom when she got sick. You disappeared for 3 years, Derek. You think you deserve this house because you showed up when it was convenient." He stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "You act like a martyr, but you're just bitter." I laughed low and cold. "Bitter?" I said. "You haven't seen bitter." I leaned in just enough for him to hear me over the sound of Mia squealing in the other room. "I met with a lawyer. I'm filing a fraud case. You better start packing." His face went blank, then came the first flicker of fear. "You wouldn't." I tilted my head. "Watch me." That night I slept in my room with the door locked and the documents clutched to my chest. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't need to anymore. I had a plan. And for the first time in years, that plan didn't include taking care of someone else first. The following week was quiet, almost too quiet. Derek didn't mention the conversation. He acted normal, maybe too normal. Tessa avoided me entirely. Nathan stayed at school late, barely spoke at dinner. I gave him space. I wanted to reach out, but I knew this would get harder before it got better. I kept my lawyer updated, collected statements, printed bank receipts, dug up every photo of the house renovations I had paid for. Then I took a bold step. I scheduled a formal sit-down with Derek and Tessa, no yelling, no fights. Just cold, clear business. We met in the living room Friday night. Nathan wasn't home yet. Mia was asleep. Derek tried to be charming. "What's all this?" he asked, sitting casually. I pulled out a manila folder and dropped it on the table. "That's the official notice. I'm suing for property fraud and I've already frozen all transactions involving this address. If you try to sell, rent, or alter anything, you'll be violating a court order." Tessa's face went pale. "Derek didn't even open the folder. You're overreacting." I met his eyes. "No, I'm finally reacting, and you're not going to gaslight me this time." He laughed bitterly. "You're tearing the family apart." "No," I said, "you did that. And you decided to steal from me." He stood up suddenly. "Fine, you want war, you got it." "Good," I said, "because I've already won the first round." I walked to the front door and opened it. "Now get out of my house." They didn't move, so I pulled out my phone and dialed. "Hello, officer? Yes, this is Lana Grayson. I'd like to report unauthorized occupants refusing to leave my property." That did it. Tessa grabbed her purse and disappeared into the hallway. Derek stared at me like he didn't recognize the woman in front of him. I didn't blink. 10 minutes later, they were gone. The house was quiet. For the first time in weeks, it actually felt like mine again. I sat on my couch, and stared at the dent in the carpet where their things had been. It would take time. Nathan would need answers. There'd be paperwork, hearings. Maybe more fights, but the hardest part was over. I had chosen myself, and I wasn't going back. Nathan came home an hour later. His backpack was slung low over one shoulder and his sneakers squeaked against the tile. He looked around, blinking at the empty living room. "Where's Uncle Derek?" he asked, eyes scanning the house like something was missing. I stayed seated on the couch. I didn't flinch. "He's gone," I said calmly. I asked them to leave. His brows pulled together. "What? Why?" I took a breath. This was the part I had rehearsed in my head all afternoon, but nothing prepares you for your own child looking at you like a stranger. "Nathan," I said softly, "this house belongs to us. You and me. Your uncle tried to take it away." He stepped back, confused. "No, he wouldn't do that," he said. "Grandpa left it to both of you." He lied. Nathan stared at me. For a second, he didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes. He wanted to fight me, defend Derek, argue, but he didn't. He just stood there, breathing hard, clenching and unclenching his fists. "I liked having them here," he finally muttered. I nodded. "I know. It felt full, like a real family." He didn't answer. "I liked it too," I said, "but it wasn't real, Nathan. They weren't building anything with us. They were trying to take over." He looked down at the floor, then turned toward his room. "I'm tired." I didn't stop him. I let him go, let him think, let him process. Parenting wasn't always about having the last word. Sometimes it was just about holding the line. The next morning was quiet. No cartoons blasting from the living room, no Mia's shrieks. No Tessa clanging pans around like she owned the kitchen, just silence, and the faint smell of coffee brewing. I sat by the window with my mug, watching the sun climb over the neighbor's roof. It felt like the first time in months that the house was breathing again. My phone buzzed. It was G9. "So, did you burn it all down yet?" I smiled. "A slow burn, but yes." She replied with a gif of a woman putting on sunglasses as a house exploded behind her. Classic G9. Then she texted again, "I'm proud of you, want to come over for dinner?" I hesitated. I wanted to say yes, but I also wanted to sit in this stillness just a little longer. Rain check. I need to remember what peace sounds like. She sent a thumbs up and didn't push. The next few days were strange, quiet, still. A little lonely, if I'm honest, but there was a calmness I hadn't felt in years. I cleaned the house top to bottom, not out of anger but out of ownership. I rearranged the living room, put the coffee table back where it belonged. cleared out the pantry and tossed everything Tessa had left behind. I even opened the windows, let the breeze in. Each act, small as it was, felt like reclaiming my skin. Nathan didn't say much for a while. He came home from school, did his homework, ate dinner with me in silence. No questions, no accusations, just quiet. Then one evening as we were washing dishes, he said, "I found one of Mia's socks in my drawer." I paused, handed him a towel. He dried his hands slowly. "I miss her." I nodded. "It's okay to miss her. I miss Uncle Derek too." I kept my eyes on the dishes. "I know." He looked at me. "But I don't miss how tense everything was. You were always tired and kinda sad." I met his eyes then, and now. He hesitated, then shrugged. "You seem stronger." That hit harder than I expected, not because it flattered me, but because he noticed. He saw me. Later that night, after he went to bed, I sat in the hallway outside his door. I stared at the family photo hanging crooked on the wall, me, Nathan, and Derek, taken 8 years ago. When smiles came easy, before all the scars, I got up and unhooked it, not out of spite, not out of bitterness, just to make space. I didn't throw it away, I didn't smash the frame. I just tucked it into a box in the closet next to old Christmas ornaments and baby clothes Nathan had long outgrown. Some things didn't belong in the center of your life anymore. Some things were better as memories. A week passed. Then came the knock. I was chopping carrots in the kitchen when I heard it. 3 slow raps on the front door. I wiped my hands, heart already sinking. I knew that knock. I opened the door and found him standing there, Derek. Hair messy, dark circles under his eyes. He held a single duffel bag, same as the day he arrived. "I'm not here to fight," he said quietly. I don't have anywhere else to go." I looked at him, really looked at him. He looked smaller, not just in frame, but in presence. The man who had once puffed up with arrogance now stood like a ghost. But I wasn't that woman anymore either. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. "You need to find your own way now," I said. "I'm done being your safety net." He swallowed hard. "Just for a few nights, Lana, please." I shook my head. "You didn't just take a room, Derek. You took space from my son, from me. You betrayed me, and I let you." He opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. "You're going to get back on your feet someday, and I hope you do, but you're not starting over in my house." He looked down. For a second I thought he might argue, but then he just nodded slowly. "I guess I deserved that." "No," I said, "you earned it." He turned and walked away. This time I didn't watch him go. It rained the next day. Not a storm, just a steady, quiet kind of rain, the kind that soaks into the ground slowly, without drama. I sat on the porch with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, watching the drops roll down the railing. Nathan joined me a few minutes later, holding 2 mugs of tea. "Chamomile," he said, handing me one. "Figured you might need it." I smiled, surprised. He sat beside me, his knees tucked up, just like he used to sit when he was little. "Did he come back?" he asked. I knew who he meant. I shook my head. "No." Nathan nodded, staring out at the wet street. "He probably will." "Maybe," I said, "but that's not my problem anymore." He took a sip of his tea. "Good." Just that, one word. It didn't feel like rebellion. It felt like relief. A few days later I saw Tessa at the grocery store. She was in the canned goods aisle, pushing a half-empty cart. Her makeup was smudged, her shirt wrinkled. She looked exhausted. I turned the other way, pretending not to notice her, but she saw me. "Lana." I stopped. She walked over, her face stiff with something that looked like shame, hard to tell. Maybe it was just pride in disguise. "I didn't know what he was doing," she said too quickly. I didn't respond. "He told me it was his house, that you didn't care, that you said we could stay." Still, I said nothing. I wouldn't have moved in like that if I knew, I swear. I finally looked at her. "Did you believe him when he said I didn't care?" She flinched just a little. "Then I wanted to." "That was honest." I nodded. "You and I both let him talk us into things," I said. "Difference is I stopped listening." She looked like she wanted to cry but was too tired to manage it. "Mia misses Nathan." "I'm sure. She keeps asking where he is." "I'm not stopping her from seeing him. That's up to Nathan." Tessa sighed. "He's a good kid. You did a good job." It took everything in me not to roll my eyes, but I didn't want to fight. "You should take care of yourself," I said instead. "And maybe next time, ask more questions before moving into someone else's home." I walked away without waiting for her reply. Some bridges didn't need to burn, they just needed to rot quietly and fall on their own. At work, G9 cornered me in the break room holding a donut in one hand and a stack of charts in the other. You look different, she said, eyeing me. What is it, a new haircut, a therapist, or just less freeloaders? I laughed. A little bit of everything. She smiled. You know, when you first told me about Derek, I thought you'd never kick him out. I thought the same. But you did, you finally said no. I nodded, it was long overdue. She leaned against the counter, more serious now. So what are you going to do next? You've got your house back, your space, what now? That question hit deeper than I expected. What was next? I hadn't thought past survival. Past claiming what was mine. But now that I had peace, what was I going to do with it? That night, I walked through the house slowly, touching the edges of the walls, the corners of each doorframe. This place had always been mine. But now it felt like mine. Nathan was in his room, music low, typing something on his laptop. I peeked in. Want dinner? He looked up. Can we order pizza? I laughed. Sure. We sat on the floor that night, eating straight from the box, watching reruns of old sitcoms we used to love. Halfway through the second slice, Nathan said, I think I want to repaint my room. I blinked. Repaint. He nodded. I want it to feel new. I smiled. Okay, pick your color. He grinned, and just like that I realized he was reclaiming too, in his own way, quietly, confidently. We were both rebuilding. The next morning I opened my inbox and found an email from my lawyer. Subject, property title update finalized. I clicked it open, heart thudding. There it was, my name, only mine. I stared at it for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and texted G9, wanna help me paint this weekend? She replied instantly, only if there's wine. I laughed out loud in the kitchen, alone and perfectly content, not because things were perfect, but because they were finally mine. We picked a Saturday for painting. Nathan chose navy blue for one wall in his room and light gray for the rest. He called it mature but cool. I didn't argue. G9 showed up just after 10 with a paint roller in one hand and a bottle of red wine in the other. You know, she said, stepping into the house, this is exactly how every woman rebuilds her life in those makeover shows. Paint, wine, and swearing. I laughed. Guess I'm on schedule then. Nathan helped with the taping at first, then disappeared after an hour. G9 and I stayed behind, brushing and rolling, the sound of our music spilling out into the hallway. Halfway through the second wall, she paused. Do you miss him? I didn't have to ask who she meant. I rested the roller against the tray and leaned back. I miss who I thought he was, the version I created in my head. She nodded. That's the one that always hurts the most. I thought helping him was love, I said. That giving everything I had, my time, my house, my peace, meant I was doing the right thing. And now, I wiped my hand on a towel. Now I know that love without boundaries isn't love, it's sacrifice, and no one builds a life out of sacrifice alone. G9 gave a slow, satisfied smile. God, you should put that on a pillow. That night, after G9 left and the walls had dried, I stood in Nathan's room staring at the new colors. They made the room feel bigger, sharper, more grown up. He had rearranged his desk, taken down a few posters, put up new ones. It didn't look like the room of a kid anymore. It looked like a boy on the edge of becoming a man. He appeared behind me suddenly. You like it? He asked. I do, I said. It feels like a reset. He nodded. I want that too, he said. I want us to start over. I looked at him and my chest tightened, not because of sadness but because of how brave that was for him to say. We are, I told him, one day at a time. He nodded again and stepped forward to hug me, not the quick, awkward kind he'd given me before, but a real one, tight and quiet. I wrapped my arms around him and breathed in the smell of fresh paint and teenage shampoo. We were going to be okay. On Monday, I took a different route to work, not because I had to, just because I wanted to. It was a small thing, a silly thing, but it felt symbolic. New paths, new mornings. At work, I caught myself humming during rounds. Even G9 noticed. Look at you, little Miss Stability, she teased. What's next? A vision board? Don't tempt me, I said, grinning. That afternoon, during lunch, I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. At the top, I typed, things I want that are just for me. I didn't think too hard, I didn't overanalyze, I just listed whatever came to mind. Take a solo trip, read one book a month, learn to swim, finally, replace the ugly kitchen light, join a yoga class, say no without guilt, laugh more, fall in love again, but only if it feels like peace, not chaos. I stared at that last line longer than the others, because for the first time I realized I wasn't afraid of love, I was just done settling for anything less than what I deserved. The next weekend, Nathan and I were invited to a birthday party. His friend's mom had insisted I come too. Apparently, I was now cool because I wore sneakers and didn't hover. I stood on the porch with the other parents, sipping iced tea, chatting about school schedules and carpool messes. One of the moms nudged me at some point. "Hey, that guy over there, he's single," she said under her breath. I turned. He was tall, a little scruffy, with a soft smile and kind eyes. He was talking to a group of kids and laughing. I smiled politely, then turned back, not because I wasn't interested, just I wasn't ready, not yet, but someday. The idea didn't scare me anymore. That night I went home, kicked off my shoes, and opened all the windows. The air was warm, the sky clear, the world felt wide again. Nathan passed by me on the way to the kitchen, headphones around his neck. He paused, looked at me. "You're different now," he said. "How so?" "You stand straighter." I laughed. "That's because I stopped carrying everyone." He grinned. "Good." And then, just like that, he disappeared down the hall. I stood there for a long time, alone, peaceful, full. 2 months passed. In that time, the house got quieter, but not empty, just peaceful. Nathan settled into his routines. School, basketball, dinner. He laughed more, I laughed more. We lived like people who'd survived something, because we had. One afternoon, I opened the mailbox and found a letter from the county clerk. Case closed. Property rights fully restored. I stared at it, just standing there in the driveway, sunlight warming my skin. A small smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. It was done, official, undeniable, my name, no one else's. I walked back inside, poured myself a glass of iced tea, and sat at the kitchen table alone, but not lonely. For the first time in years, my life didn't feel like it belonged to someone else. It was mine. G9 insisted on throwing a house rewarming party. "Not a housewarming," she said, waving a hand, "because you never left, but definitely a rewarming for the woman who kicked out the freeloaders and reclaimed the throne." I laughed, but I let her plan it. The following Saturday, a handful of close friends showed up with food and folding chairs. There was wine, music, laughter spilling out the back door and into the yard. I stood in the kitchen at one point, looking through the window, watching Nathan joke with G9's husband near the grill. He was smiling again. Not that tight, careful smile he used to wear when Derek was around, when he wasn't sure whose side to be on. This one was wide, goofy, real. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, I sat on the back porch with a blanket around my shoulders. The breeze was soft. The air smelled like cut grass and charcoal. Nathan joined me, barefoot, holding a bowl of leftover pasta. "You tired?" he asked. "A little, you." He nodded, then quietly, "I'm glad you kicked them out." I looked over, surprised. "I mean, I didn't know how to say it back then," he continued. "I was confused. I thought I liked having them here, but it wasn't really about them." "What was it about?" "I think I just wanted to feel like we weren't alone." I nodded. "I know, I wanted that too." He looked down at his bowl. "But we were never really alone, were we?" "No," I said, "we just forgot that us is enough." He smiled, and just like that, something shifted between us. Not a dramatic moment, just something solid, something real. We weren't mother and son stuck in survival mode anymore. We were teammates. A week later, I came home from work and found a card on the kitchen counter. No envelope. Just a folded index card, Nathan's messy handwriting scrawled across it. "Thanks for not giving up on me." It wasn't signed, it didn't have to be. I pressed it to my chest, tears stinging my eyes. Of all the things I had fought to protect, the house, the title, my peace, this one meant the most. My boy, still mine. The seasons changed. Fall rolled in with crisp air and leaves crunching underfoot. I bought a new coat, painted the mailbox. Took a yoga class just once, but still, life moved forward, and so did I. One day, G9 asked if I was seeing anyone. I laughed. "No time." "Liar," she said, "you just don't want to." I didn't argue, because it was true. I wasn't afraid of dating again, but I wasn't chasing it either. Not anymore. I had spent years running after things, love, family, approval, like they were always just a few steps ahead of me. Now, I wasn't running. I was standing still, rooted, whole, and whoever came next would have to meet me where I was. Sometimes Derek texted, short messages, no emotion, you good? Just checking in. I never replied, not out of spite, just clarity. Some chapters end with a slam, others with a whisper, ours ended with silence, and that was enough. One night I took out the old photo album, the one with the worn leather cover and fading edges. I flipped through pages of birthdays, Christmases, high school dances, photos of me and Derek as kids, of Nathan as a baby, of my mother's smile, my father's strong hands. I stopped at one picture, me holding Nathan in the hospital, exhausted but glowing. Back then I had no idea how hard life would get, how heavy it would feel sometimes, but I also didn't know how strong I could be. I touched the photo gently and whispered, you made it. Because she did, and so did I. It was a Sunday when the email came. Subject line, opportunity in Chicago, are you interested? I clicked it without thinking much. It was from one of the regional directors I'd met at a nursing conference 6 months ago. We had spoken briefly, exchanged cards, nothing serious, but this was serious. A leadership position at one of the city's largest hospitals. More responsibility, higher pay, a clean start in a brand new place. I reread the email twice, then I sat back and stared out the window, heart thudding. Could I really leave? Could I start again somewhere else and not look back? I heard Nathan in the other room, his sneakers thudding softly across the floor. This had always been our home, but maybe home wasn't just one place. Maybe it was wherever we felt safe, where we were seen. I hit reply and typed. Can we schedule a call this week? I didn't tell Nathan that night. I needed to sit with the idea first, make sure it wasn't just a reaction to something, but it didn't feel like escape, it felt like choice. 2 days later we were eating dinner, grilled cheese and soup, when I finally said it. I got an offer, I said. Nathan looked up, chewing slowly. For what? A new position in Chicago. He froze, like to work there. I nodded. It'd be a big change, but it's a good job, really good. He pushed his plate aside. Would we move? I didn't sugarcoat it. Yeah, probably. He leaned back in his chair. And what about this house? I sighed. We'd rent it or sell. I'm not sure yet. He was quiet, processing, then softly, do you want to go? I met his eyes. I think I do. He didn't speak for a while, just looked around the room, at the fridge covered in magnets, the windows we'd washed together, the couch we'd fallen asleep on during movie nights. Finally he said, then let's go. Just like that, no drama, no pushback, just a quiet agreement between two people who had grown through the fire. That night I walked through the house again, every room, every corner. I didn't feel sad, I felt ready, not because the house had lost its meaning, but because it had given me everything it could. Now it was time for something new. The next morning I went to work and handed in my notice. My supervisor blinked at me in disbelief. Chicago. I smiled. Yeah, it's time. Jeanine was furious at first. You're just going to leave me to deal with these lunatics by myself? I'll come back to visit, I said. You better. I'm not throwing another house rewarming party unless there's deep dish involved. We hugged so tight I thought my ribs would crack. In the weeks that followed, everything moved fast. I found an apartment near the hospital. Nathan picked his new school. We sold off furniture we didn't love, packed boxes, donated things we'd outgrown. One night I found an old shoebox in the back of a closet. Inside were letters from my mom, a few childhood photos, and a tiny pair of baby socks Nathan had worn when he first came home. I sat cross-legged on the floor and cried, quiet tears, the kind that don't ache, just release. It wasn't grief, it was gratitude for every version of me that had survived to get here. Moving day came with light rain and gray skies. The movers loaded the truck in silence. I stood at the porch one last time, watching them lift box after box until the house was empty. Nathan came up beside me, hoodie up, backpack slung over his shoulder. You ready? He asked. I looked at him, taller now, more certain. I think I've been ready for a while, I said. We got in the car, pulled out of the driveway. I didn't look back, not once. Chicago greeted us with cold wind and crowded sidewalks. The first night in the new apartment, we ordered deep dish and ate on the floor. It was nothing fancy, just a stack of unpacked boxes, 2 folding chairs, and laughter echoing through bare walls. But it felt like home. Weeks passed. I adjusted to the new job, Nathan made friends, we found a routine. I discovered a cafe on the corner with the best black coffee I'd ever had. I started walking to work, I bought a plant, I let myself rest. And slowly the ache I hadn't even noticed in my chest faded. One evening I got a message from an unknown number. It was short, just a single line. I hope you're okay. No name, but I didn't need one. I stared at the message for a few seconds, then I deleted it, not in anger, just peace. He was still looking backward, but I was too far forward to turn around. Spring came late in Chicago. The wind still bit through my jacket most mornings, but the trees outside our apartment had started budding, stubborn and silent. Life was pushing through the cold little by little. Nathan seemed lighter now. He'd joined the school paper of all things, said he liked asking questions, finding out people's stories. I couldn't help but smile at that. He was learning how to listen, maybe because he'd watched me learn how to speak. One Thursday, as I walked home from work, I passed a bookstore I'd never noticed before. The sign in the window read, Women's Writing Circle, Saturdays at 3 p.m. I stopped, backed up. I'd never shared my story with strangers before. But something about that sign pulled at me. I walked in. The group met in a quiet room upstairs. Wood floors, old lamps, a circle of mismatched chairs. Most of the women were older than me, some softer, some sharper. All of them carried something in their eyes I recognized: grit, grief, grace. We introduced ourselves. When it was my turn, I hesitated. Then I said, "My name's Lana, I just moved here. I used to think starting over meant failure. Now I think it just means finally choosing yourself." There were a few nods. Someone whispered, "Amen." I wrote about the house, the door I paid for but wasn't allowed to lock. The sound of someone else's child crying in my hallway at 3 a.m., the feeling of being erased in my own home. I wrote about Nathan, the way he looked at me the night I said, "We're enough." I wrote about Derek, about how betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it walks in through the front door and calls you sis. And I wrote about myself, the woman who survived, then rebuilt, then dared to want more. One of the women approached me after the third session. "You should publish these," she said. "Your words are like oxygen." I smiled politely. I wasn't sure I believed her, but I saved the pages anyway, maybe not for the world. But for Nathan, someday. One evening after dinner, Nathan asked, "Do you miss it?" "The house?" I asked. He nodded. "That life." I thought for a moment. I missed the parts that were real. He tilted his head. "Like what?" "Like the way the floor creaked in the hallway, the smell of banana bread in winter, movie nights, your voice when you were little." He smiled. "You never baked banana bread." I laughed. "Okay, maybe I imagined that part." He set his plate in the sink, rinsed it without being asked. Just like that, I felt another tiny shift between us. Trust, respect, mutual peace, the kind that isn't loud, just steady. I started dating again, slowly, cautiously. Coffee dates, walks in the park. I wasn't looking for magic, just kindness. I didn't need someone to rescue me. I had already done that. One evening, after a nice dinner with a guy named Ray, gentle smile, steady laugh, I walked home and found Nathan waiting on the couch. "How was it?" he asked, eyes curious but not pushy. "Good," I said. "He's nice." He nodded. "You seem happy." I paused. "I am." And I was, not because of Ray, not because of anyone else, because I had finally become someone I liked. My job got busier. I led my first major department meeting without breaking into a sweat. My manager praised my leadership. I earned trust and space and a future. One of the doctors stopped me in the hallway. "Whatever you've been doing lately," he said, "keep doing it. You're different in a good way." I smiled. "Thanks, I feel different." Because I did. One Sunday morning, Nathan and I walked to the lake. No agenda. Just a quiet day with time to spare. We sat on a bench, watching the water, trading sips from the same thermos. Out of nowhere, he said, "You know what I remember most from everything back then?" "What?" "That you stopped apologizing." I turned to look at him. "You used to say sorry for everything," he continued, "even when you hadn't done anything wrong, but after Derek left, you didn't anymore." I blinked, swallowed. "You started saying no instead, saying enough." I didn't understand it at the time, but now I do. I didn't answer right away. There was nothing to fix, nothing to explain, so I just reached out and took his hand. We sat like that for a while, two people who had made it through. Not perfect, not untouched, but whole. Later that day, I opened my writing folder and typed something new. Chapter 1, The Day I Let Go of Guilt. And below that, some people call it starting over. I call it coming home to yourself. Because that's what healing was, not forgetting, not erasing, just choosing peace over and over until it finally felt real. The first time I visited the old house again, it was purely by accident. I was in town for a medical conference and decided to drive through the neighborhood. I told myself it was just curiosity, just passing through, but when I turned down that familiar street, I felt it in my chest, not a sharp pain. Not fear, just a ripple. I parked across from the house and sat there quietly, engine off, windows down. It had been nearly a year since I walked out with Nathan and didn't look back. Now the grass was taller, the paint a little faded. A new car sat in the driveway, the porch light was on even though the sun was still out. It no longer looked like mine, and that was okay, because I had stopped needing it to be. I didn't tell Nathan I went. Some things weren't worth reopening, not because they hurt, because they didn't, but because they didn't need retelling. We were living forward now, not backward. That summer I took a solo trip to the coast. Just me, a rented car, and a suitcase full of comfortable clothes. I walked along the cliffs in Oregon, ate fish tacos with my fingers, let my phone die and didn't rush to charge it. At one overlook, I sat on a wooden bench watching the sea throw itself against the rocks. The sky was wide and the wind so loud it drowned out everything else. It felt like the whole world was exhaling, so I did too. Right there, I pulled out my notebook and wrote one sentence: "You don't have to be angry to let go." I hadn't realized I was still holding on to the idea that closure had to be dramatic. It didn't. Sometimes it was just a quiet moment, a wave breaking in the distance, and a heart that finally didn't hurt. When I got home, Nathan met me at the airport, taller than ever, wearing a t-shirt I'd never seen before. "Hey, world traveler," he said, hugging me. "How was it?" Exactly what I needed. We rode the train back in comfortable silence. That night I unpacked slowly, not because I was tired, but because I wanted to hold on to that calm a little longer. I hung the little wind chime I bought at the coast outside my bedroom window. Every time it sang, it reminded me, "You did it, you're here, you're whole." A few weeks later, I received a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address. I knew the handwriting before I opened it. "Derek." I stood in the hallway holding the envelope, unsure if I even wanted to read it, but I did. Inside, a single page. "Lana, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I see it now, all of it. What you did, what I destroyed. You were right. I didn't deserve your kindness. I hope you're happy, D." I folded the letter slowly, set it in the drawer with the rest of the memories I didn't need to display. He was right, he didn't deserve forgiveness, but I had already given it to myself, and that was enough. One evening in fall, I sat at a small cafe with Ray. We had been dating for a few months now, nothing rushed, nothing heavy, just steady. Safe. He was telling me about a story he'd read, something about a tree that keeps growing even after the top dies. "The roots keep going," he said, "it just shifts direction." I smiled. "That sounds about right." He looked at me carefully. "You've changed, you know." "How so?" "You're calm, not passive, just grounded, like someone who knows exactly who she is." I took a slow sip of my tea. I didn't used to. He nodded. "I know." We sat there, letting the quiet stretch between us, not awkward, not tense, just full. When we got home that night, Nathan was on the couch, headphones around his neck, scrolling through his laptop. "How was your date?" he asked without looking up. "Nice," I said. "He talks about trees." Nathan smirked. "Sounds deep." "It's kind of charming." "Do you like him?" I paused. "Yes," I said honestly, "but I like myself more." He looked up at that, then smiled. "Good." One night I opened my laptop and finally finished the story I had been writing. The last line came easily. "Sometimes the person you have to walk away from isn't the villain. Sometimes it's the version of yourself that kept choosing pain." I hit save. Closed the screen. Outside my window, the wind chime danced. 2 years ago, I was a woman drowning in my own house. Today, I am someone who owns every square inch of her life. My name is Lana Grayson. And I am no longer afraid to start again.